Eight. Hey, we're live. Welcome to Pro Speak with Jeffrey. Even though on the bottom it says Hang Out with Jeffrey, I could not get Google to cooperate tonight. Boy, oh boy. Life with technology. I have to tell you, life with technology, well, it's pretty wonderful, but sometimes I wonder if it's on my side. I've just had one of those technologies day. But enough about me. I have a wonderful guest here tonight. I have to tell you, everybody, I am a fan of this lady, Jan DeTracy. I met her at CAPS, Canadian Association of Professional Speakers. I won't say how many years ago, because it was a number of years ago, way back in, oh no, yeah. Gee, it's almost 16 years. Anyway, but as I got talking to Jan recently, and we were sharing some of the things that went on in our life, and I heard her story, I was quite amazed. And I thought it was such a brilliant example, because ProSpeak is for facilitators, trainers, hangout, keynote speakers. And I thought it was such a wonderful example of taking one of life's challenges, one of life's difficulties, and instead of surrendering to it, actually grabbing it and turning it into an advantage. So that's why I called this one Out of Adversity. And so what did come out of adversity? So first of all, though, I think what we need to do is to ask Jan to introduce herself. So I'm going to shut up and tell us about what she does now, but don't give away the story, Jan. Just tell us what you do.
That sounds good. Thanks so much, Jeffrey. And just to say also that when I first joined CAPS many years ago, Jeffrey, you were facilitating a sort of course or workshop that lasted quite a long time for newbies that were coming in. So you were my mentor trainer person way back in the day. So we really do roll back far.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Yeah. So my name is Jen DeTracy, and I call myself a strategic alchemist. And I call myself that because what I do is I help businesses transform through following a marketing process and marketing systems. And over the years, I've been doing marketing for, wow, 25 plus years now. Hard to believe, I know. I haven't had a facelift. And I used to work in the music business for 10 years. So I use that premise of fans. And what I do is I help business owners and organizations build their fan club. And many years ago, I worked with superstar Grammy Award winner, Junior Award winner, Sarah McLachlan, to help her build her fan club. Now, that's a long time ago now, and she's not the celebrity she once was. But that kind of cracked me into this way of creating programs. So that's a little bit of history about me. I've had my own business in consulting for 15 years. I do one-on-one training with individuals to help them come up with marketing strategies and a plan. I also work in full-day training settings and speak at conferences and conventions at keynotes and do that kind of stuff. So I have many loves, and I've also taught at colleges in the past. So I just really enjoy helping people and seeing them be successful and getting results. I'm all about the action. How do you take action and take action now?
Brilliant. I participated in an event with Jen, both as I signed up to take it because she was giving it, and then I was there briefly, and I had kind of a few technical issues. Boy, I wonder if I got technical bugs, but anyway, and I was amazed at your new program. I love it. It is top notch. So, but we'll get to that, and you can take time to talk us about that. But out of adversity.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened? What happened that rocked your boat, put you back on your heels, and made you think?
Wow. Well, over 5 years ago, actually, so almost just over 5 years ago and a couple months, I was actually on a speaking tour in northern BC. And during that tour, what happened was I started to notice some crazy things. Actually, the day before the tour, I was trying to grab something, write with a pen. And I thought, oh, this pen must not be working very well because I was having difficulties. It was with my left hand. I'm left-handed. And I thought, oh, well, you know, I just put it aside. I thought, you know, focus on the tour. Everything's going to be fine. But I was feeling exhausted. And so when I had 3 dates in 2.5 days. It was crazy, and there was quite a bit of driving in between each town in northern BC. So the second morning I got up and I thought, I have to get some energy, and I went for a run, and my left foot started dragging behind me, and I thought, this is very strange. It didn't hurt. And by the last day, I had to stand in front of a table so that I didn't look like I was dragging my foot, do my half-day presentation. And then I was so relieved to get on the plane. And by the time I woke up the next day, I had a drooping left side of my mouth. So I knew I was not in great shape. And I was encouraged, but in denial. I did go to the hospital. And I showed up after dinner, you know, because you don't want to be an emergency before you've had a good meal, because you never know how long you're going to be there for. Right? So
True.
eat before you go if you can. Anyway, within 24 hours, they had come back to me, and after I'd had a brain scan, and said, Jen, you've got inflammation of the brain, and you know, we're diagnosing you with multiple sclerosis. Now you can imagine the shock that I had at that time to get that news. I didn't even know what multiple sclerosis really was.
I don't think, oh, that would put a curl in my lip to find out about that.
Yeah, it was like a bomb dropping. And so what happened was I had to stay in the hospital for 3 days because they gave me a steroid drip just to reduce the inflammation in my brain. And within a day or so, the issues I was having with the left side of my body, with the lip and my hand and my foot, disappeared. So it was a very, very active way to deal with the situation. However, if anybody's ever been on steroids legally, you know.
Not illegally either.
You know that when you're doing something that intense, it affects your state of being. I was very tired, but I was buzzed out, and I left the hospital. And I thought it would pass, but what happened was the fatigue didn't pass. And I still continued to work. I had a lot of speaking ahead of me, but within 6 months, I was just a train wreck, and I could barely at that point get out of bed. It was kind of a mess. I had laundry piled up to the ceiling and dishes, you know, stacked up in the kitchen, and it was hard. And I had to face the denial. And but one thing I had told you, Jeffrey, earlier, and I forgot to mention that, was when I was in the hospital, as someone who, you know, loves to share information and inspire people and motivate, my dream was to do something more inspirational than just talk about marketing. And there I was, laying in my hospital bed one night, the night I was diagnosed, actually, and I was thinking about 2 things. One is I was thinking about, wow, like maybe someday I'll be able to use this in a way that will be inspiring or empowering or healing to myself and other people, but I didn't know what that looked like. And the other thing I thought about that night as my sister left the hospital, and I said, you know, I think I have an insurance policy at home, so can you go to my shelf and pull that off the shelf and bring that to me tomorrow? Because I had bought critical illness insurance 18 months prior to being diagnosed. Now, for people that don't know what that is, that's like a lump sum of money that you get if you meet the criteria. Some people, it might be cancer or heart attack or stroke. It can be many things. And I didn't know if multiple sclerosis was on the list. So that night I was thinking about my insurance policy more than I was thinking about the MS.
Yeah, I can imagine. Lots of thoughts going. I mean, a hospital bed is a lonely place, even though there's thousands of people around you, and there's people on your beck and call. But I can tell you from my own experience, it's a very lonely place.
Yes. Yeah. When the lights go out and everything's shut down for the night, it can be a very hard time. Absolutely. And so my sister came back the next day and I'm like, did you bring the policy? And she pulled it out of her monster-sized purse. And then there was a moment of silence, which is a miracle because my sister doesn't stop talking. So I was grateful for that. And I flipped through the policy and I saw that multiple sclerosis was on the list. And so I felt some, that I had this safety net underneath me, some relief. Now, it did take me, I waited some time to see where I was at, and then I contacted my insurance person and we started the process. And around the time that I was barely able to get out of bed because I had pushed myself far too hard, was around the time that I was informed that I would receive this lump sum money, which was $100,000. I'm happy to tell people what that was. And there was a huge relief in that because I really couldn't work much at that time. I was kind of trying to keep it together, but I knew I needed a break, and people were telling me, and they don't tell you at the hospital, they just send you off and say, carry on with your normal life. And that can be like, well, what is normal now? I'm not the same person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
Normal becomes quite different when you have MS.
Yes, it does. And, I'm very lucky in a lot of ways. I've adapted over the 5 years and I'm able-bodied and.
Oh, I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you. You are not lucky. You are smart, you are courageous, and you're hardworking. Luck has got nothing to do with it. I know that. So I want to, you got to own that you created results out of this and done well with it.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Jeffrey. I think, the big thing for me was, truthfully, and I want to be honest with you and everyone that's listening, I was at a very difficult place, even when I got the money. I had read an article about a woman who had been diagnosed. She was around my age. I was 44 at the time, actually 45 by the time I sort of got to coming to terms, at least the beginning of coming to terms or not being in denial. She had written an article that was published in the Georgia Straits. She had written a book. And she had been diagnosed with Parkinson's, but she was wishing at that point that she had gotten, some kind of cancer that would take her out. That's how much pain she was in. And I literally felt, even 6 months after being diagnosed, that I was dying. And I think I lost, it was Jen, the business person, became who am I now? The identity crisis, right? And I really had to dig deep for a while to sort out how was I going to move forward with my life. And I felt in a very dark place. And when I received the money, even though I was relieved and grateful, I had to ask myself an important question. And that question was, what's something that I've always wanted to do? Now I have the money. I've had a great year in business financially, so I'm doing fine. What can I do that I've always wanted to do? And I thought, well, I want to self-publish a book. And that's when I used that over the year to push through, putting my attention away from some of the sorrow and into a project that was meaningful for me. And that was kind of the book really, Lift Strategies, Quick Tips to Engage Customers and Elevate Profits. And I wasn't even going to talk about this today, but it was what kept me going. That book saved my life. The critical illness insurance money saved my life. These things saved my life. And while I was actually doing the touring of speaking, I had worked with a fellow, actually his whole company up in Smithers, BC. And there was a whole team of people. They were financial advisors. And I'd done 2 days of full marketing training with them. And they had told me there's a conference that we have every year. And the first year I talked to his colleague, they weren't very organized and they didn't hire me, truthfully. And then here I was. It was about a year after I had been diagnosed. And I thought, I want to speak at that event. And so I contacted them and I thought, they didn't jump on my idea last year of sharing my proven marketing process. That's not what they're looking for. So I came up with this idea of telling my story. because I wanted more people to know about critical illness and disability insurance, especially business owners, people that have their own business. And so I thought, well, who's the best audience? Financial advisors or people that sell insurance that are in the same industry. So I proposed to this group for their AGM, which was, even though they were in northern BC, that was in Vancouver, that I offer this presentation on how critical illness saved my life. And I actually at that time called it selling insurance, how to avoid leaving money on the table. And it was a pilot project. I wrote the speech over Christmas time. And, you know, I sort of got clear about what my points were, and I showed up, and it was a big success. In fact, I had people say, it was a small group. I think there was 40 people in the room, all the people from up in sort of northern BC, Smithers and Prince George area and that sort of region. And basically one woman said, you know, you made us discuss things that we have never talked about in the office before. You crack things open in a way that we've never ventured into, because I asked them questions. I wanted to know, they're selling the product. Do they have it? Who in the room has that product? I remember hearing something from, I think it was Zig Ziglar, and he was telling a story about this guy that was trying to sell pots. And he said to the guy, well, do you own a set of those pots? And the guy said, no. And he's like, well, you better go out and buy some. So what happened was, from there is I realized that I had something that had a stickiness factor.
Tell me, what's a stickiness factor?
Yeah, something that you know, when you test out a presentation and you get resonance with the audience. I actually that day offered them 2 presentations. I did the one about insurance and how it saved my life, and how they needed to sell their product better based on my experience as a client. I told the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then I did a marketing thing, which, you know, it went quite well. But afterwards they said to me, you know, it was that first presentation where I took them on that roller coaster ride of what happened to me and how I bought the critical illness insurance 18 months before, but I didn't buy disability insurance. And my insurance person did not educate me and tell me, if you don't buy the product before you have a medical label by your name, you are out of luck. So now I don't qualify for disability insurance. So if the MS gets worse at some point, then I'm stuck without it. And as a self-employed person with a corporation, that's kind of a scary thing. So fortunately, I haven't been in a place where I've needed to access it, and I'm truly grateful for that. But I think it was an important message to talk to them and say, you know, my insurance broker could have come back to me 6 months later, a year later, and said, Jen, you didn't buy disability, you should buy it now, and here's why. But she didn't do that. She left money on the table. And so yeah, I shared the different aspects of the story, and then I decided I was going to go out to the marketplace and sell this keynote. The challenge I had was I had never spoken in that financial service industry ever before.
So you didn't have a marketplace.
Exactly. So I had to use my proven process to go out there and get started. And, you know, it took a little bit of time, but I lucked out one day. Again, I call it lucking out, but I had been connected with somebody, and I called this guy. His name's Lloyd Lidke, and he was in charge of the BC region for Canada Life, which is a fairly big insurance organization. And I called him and I said, I left him a message actually, and I said, listen, I have this presentation. I'm interested in talking to you about it. He called me back right away. And he said, come on in and talk to us. And within a couple of days, I was in there and I told him what I did. And he had his assistant there as well. And he said, well, we've got a tour we're doing, and it's coming up in a month. And we've got 5 dates in BC. And so, you know, we've got a tight budget. So we sort of negotiated that all out. He said, listen, I have to check back with you to see if we can get that money for you. And I thought, this is a great opportunity for me to get in front of large audiences. Some of the groups were several hundred people in a room, and like large in terms of for a small organization to do these events. So anywhere from 50 people to, I think there was like 250, 300. And I thought, this is going to be tough for me to do because I'm living with fatigue, and to do this 5 days in a row is going to be hard for me. And so we started in Victoria, which was a small venue, which was great. It gave me a chance to test drive, and he wasn't there to see it. So I figured, if the first one had some rough spots, I was off the hook. And so we did 5 days, and I have to admit it was tough, but it was so fulfilling for me to talk to all these people. And at the end, I give them an opportunity to tell stories about how they sold insurance to people and how it impacted people's lives in such an amazing and positive way. And it was just, I'm just talking about it now, and I'm feeling goosebumps from that experience, Jeffrey. It was just so incredible to hear these stories shared of how people are changing people's lives forever by selling these products. And so I came off of that tour, and I felt just so overjoyed. And then Canada Life is connected with other organizations like Great-West Life and London Life and Freedom 55. And so sometimes through those channels and sometimes not, I connected with other people. I was actually, Canada Life brought me back to speak to their top customers at an event in this amazing place in Ontario. It's called Gravenhurst. It's cottage country, just incredible. And also in BC. So I did those. They hired me at full price for those engagements. And then I spoke at I was the opening speaker for a Freedom 55 managers conference where all the managers across Canada come together once a year. And I was the opening speaker for that event. And that was also quite lovely. So over time, I was building my roster, and Manulife hired me. And I also was hired by a company called ABAX, and so on and so forth. So I had a good 1.5 year shelf life on that work, and I was thrilled to speak. Great-West Life hired me as well. So it was just such a gift to be able to share such a powerful message and get paid to tell my story. My content was my own, so it wasn't like people could say, well, they were the experts. Although they didn't like some of the comments I made about some of the recommendations from my marketing and sales background around things that I feel that they could do to improve their sales. But, people all have their own opinions, and so they should.
Well, I'll just add, as you know, I had one of these life interrupters, as I call it, myself a couple of years. Oh no, it's not even. It's just over a year and a bit ago. God, time flies. And I wish I'd had the kind of insurance that you're talking about, because I did. I've got, the typical kind of package that they saw. Nobody offered me critical life or disability. And well, I mean, I got the story where there you are thinking you'd like to do something better or inspiring. And then you start talking to insurance people about it. Have you taken the story out to the people to say, hey, this is what you need to ask for? Because I think there's lots of people, particularly as speakers, facilitators, trainers, where a lot of us are independent, small corporations, maybe 1 or 2 people.
Yeah.
And we don't think about what's going to happen if we get sick, because most of us are pretty energetic kind of people. I think there's a story that you could tell at a Soho conference or such, and Yeah. Well, anyway, I'm
You know what?
rabbiting on.
You know, thank you for that. I think I haven't taken it to that realm because originally my mission was, I felt the best way to get more people to know about critical and disability insurance was to share it with the people that sell it, to motivate them to have conversations with each and every one of their clients and give people the opportunity to say yes or no to it. You know, at the time, actually, if I can just add this before I comment more on what you've said, Jeffrey, is when I bought critical illness insurance, and that's a whole nother story around adversity, I had left a 14-year relationship, and I had asked myself at that time, who's going, I was the primary supporter of you know, my partner and stepdaughter at that time, who's going to support me now if I have a crisis, right? And so I bought critical illness insurance, but at that time I had financially I was strapped because I was in this process of a breakup and my expenses tripled. So I didn't buy disability insurance, but I could have bought it 9 months later because I had, you know, my financial situation had changed. So that was kind of an interesting picture. So, but I think business owners, small business owners, micro business owners, and small business owners do need to hear this story. And it is one that I want to get out and I feel passionate about. And I think that it is a message that people need to hear. And because I'm not selling the products, people should say, oh, you should sell these products. I'm not selling these products. I'm simply telling, you know, wanting people to know that you know, your life is going to be a lot easier if you're backed up by stuff. Now, since that time, I actually have found, because once you, like I said, and you know that, Jeffrey, yourself, once you have a medical label by your name, certain things you can't get anymore, like certain types of insurance, even life insurance. I can't even increase my life insurance now.
No,
I'm stuck with what I have. You probably found that out too, I imagine. Yeah, it's a little bit of a surprise.
and also travel is now for me expensive.
Yeah, especially if you're going away for a long period of time, right? That can be a challenge, right? Yeah. So these are the things that people just don't think about, and often until it's too late. And for me, I did research because I thought if I'm going out and talking about these products, I have to walk my talk. So I looked in, I had actually financial people come up to me and say, Jen, you know, actually, there may not have been more critical illness insurance out there, but now there is. And I ended up being able to buy a product that is for cancer, heart attack, and stroke. And yeah. So, you know, there are other products out there. In terms of disability insurance, it's impossible for me to get that, but I have accident insurance. I figure, you know, if I have a topple on my bike or something like that, and I can't work for a period of time, at least I have some backup plans. So thankfully there are a lot of products on the marketplace, but in terms of the main ones, I think it's also because more and more people are buying these products. The other thing is that they're getting harder and harder to qualify for. And so that can be a challenge too. So the younger people that are buying these products, the better, because number one, their premium it's tiny when they're younger, especially in their 20s and 30s. And then the other thing is they've locked it in. They have it no matter what happens based on their history. So, you know, I've learned a lot about this post, but truthfully, when I bought the products, I knew nothing. And that's what I share with the audience too, the financial advisors. Like, I was clued. I really wasn't educated. And even though I had a great broker sell me the product, she didn't really spend the time walking me through the details. And that's something I think is important. So, but going back to your question, as I digress here, yes, I think that there are potential for other audiences for this story, and that's something that I'm just going to put on my super cape and go out there and make it happen.
Yeah, I think for example, I mean, I've just learned about some things I didn't know about. I know that you're not being paid by the insurance companies to talk to me because I asked you to come and do this.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, it has a different kind of ring and a different feel when that happens.
Yeah.
It's an interesting time when you are challenged physically and you're up against a health issue, and you start thinking about how can I inspire or how can I help people.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I mean, I think it's amazing that you turned it into a business opportunity. I mean,
Yes.
that's kind of how my brain works too. Oh, I can, right, moving it along.
Yes. Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a personal element to this that is
Mm-hmm.
very important. You use the term "I'm lucky, I do this," but I noticed that you made the phone call, that you take the action, that you take accountability. And
Yes. Thanks for bringing that up. You know, the key thing is I've heard other speakers, speaking professionals, say they're not keen on getting on the phone and making the calls. And uh, I, if I can find out who the contacts are, I have no problem making those calls. It doesn't mean I'm not nervous or a little anxious when I'm doing it, but back in the music business, I was on the phone every day talking to record stores, telling them that they need to bring in Skinny Puppy CDs or something very obscure, and you learn skills around phone. And I think it's so important. The email just doesn't cut it when it comes to having those meaningful conversations with people to sell yourself. And I worked really, really hard to break in and connect with Manulife and to find somebody at Great West Life and to make those contacts. And it is work. But in the end, the payoff is so amazing, and it's so worth it. So, you know, I want to encourage people that if they're going on their own to speak, to pick up the phone and make the call. You need to know who you're focusing on as your market, and that's my marketing hat. So for me, it was the financial service industry, right? If I were to
that's a
take
good
this
fit.
out,
Right, yeah, natural to fit.
yeah. So, but if I were to take this out to, or I could take it out, this presentation out to associations, I could speak at a massage therapy association meeting or chiropractic or, you know, lots of different, in many different business sectors where people are micro businesses. They have less than 5 employees and they may not be considering these things. Actually, you know, I had a chiropractor and I was going to see him. And he told me one day, yeah, I'm closing my practice. I'm closing it next week. Or actually, I think I showed up on the last day and I didn't even know, because he had been diagnosed with 4th stage cancer. And he said, you know what? I'm not going to work till the end. And, you know, I didn't ask him if he had disability or insurance or critical illness insurance. But these things, we just don't know. We don't know what our future is going to look like. And we need to be realistic about creating a safety net underneath us as professionals who rely on ourselves to provide content and to speak. We are often the brand.
Yes,
And if we're not there to do that, then there ain't no money coming in.
I can attest to that.
You know, and
Um,
that's the reality.
yeah.
So I think having those plans in place are vital, and or at least getting creative, like you and I that have been on this journey, and we have ideas of things that we can do now where we can leverage our experience and share that with other people in a way that's going to be beneficial and meaningful for lots of people.
So tell me, um, I'm privy to part of our conversation before, but so are you planning to put some of your great stuff online,
Around this journey.
marketing and on this journey, or?
Yes. Well, I have a bigger vision for something that I want to do, and it's basically to create a membership site around building community and sharing information. And I, without getting into all the details of it today, because I haven't worked it all out yet, and it's kind of one of those monster projects that you know needs money behind it to make it happen. So, but I think really what I want to do, because one of the key things that I've learned as someone who now lives with what you'd call a critical illness. In this case, it's multiple sclerosis. There are a lot of people that are out working and functioning in life that are struggling with fatigue. And fatigue is a difficult one because it can be very isolating, because you can't live the full life. I live a full life, but it is not the full life that I lived back before I was diagnosed. It's a different full life. And and so there can be isolation. It's sometimes, if you are struggling, like in my case, I started going to a meditation group, but then I had a relapse and I couldn't show up for a while. And actually, I've had relapses right before a speaking engagement. Now, I know I can get up and do that speaking engagement pretty much no matter what, even with a little bit of vertigo and a little bit of gravel. But, these things happen, so it's unpredictability. But what I want to do is I want to share with people strategies and ways that they can come, number one, be more peaceful about living with a critical illness. Secondly, how they can deal with functioning and living with fatigue. So, that's a future thing. I mean, for me, there's so much I want to share. And I know from speaking to you that you have ideas and a vision as well. And these things are they're in the incubator stage, right?
Right. I mean, most of my viewers know that I had open heart surgery, quintuple bypass. Surgeon said, "Oh, I almost did 6, but 5 is as many as I thought it was." And I thought, "Oh my God."
Wow, shocking. Yeah, shocking.
It's and I also, like you, kind of started to think, well, there's a bigger story. There's something else. But I also think that when you have a vision or a purpose that's bigger than you, it kind of provides energy, don't you think?
Yeah, it is a life force, and I feel so motivated and driven, and also it is big. So it's kind of overwhelming, truthfully.
Mm-hmm.
Daunting, but it's exciting. Like, there's excitement there and passion, and I imagine you feel alive when you think of your idea too, and where you want to take that.
Yes, I do. And kind of the interesting thing for me is that since I've had that sort of fully committed to that, the rest of my career has just taken off like jet fuel. So I think that there's a connection between having a deeper purpose and having a stronger commitment, perhaps to something that just is really about contributing back to the world.
Yes, I agree. And I think for me, in the work I do right now, where I help people with their businesses and putting marketing infrastructure in place, I think during my whole career, especially since I started my own business, have felt of service to other people. And that's the common thread that runs through what I do. But to take the marketing skills I have and create this community that I envision, and to use the skills I have to do that, feels amazing, right? It's and that idea actually came up. I went to a silent retreat for 10 days. I do that every couple of years. It's a way to really unplug completely. And I was laying on this massage table getting healing touch, and I swear I had this message that came through me that said, you have a purpose. And I didn't know what it was, and I went down and I walked the labyrinth, which I find to be an amazing way to process information from the subconscious. And I started to get this concept of how other people might be feeling isolated from fatigue or grief or sadness and lack of energy, and not being able to get out as much as they would like to, and how there could be a place that we could come together and share, because so many people don't really understand what it's like, for example, to live with fatigue. I look normal, I look healthy, I'm fully able-bodied. So what does that mean? I'm invisible. I have an invisible disability. And there are millions of people out there that have an invisible disability. So sorry, go ahead, Jeffrey.
No, carry on. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to say I've got friends I want to connect you with to help you.
So this is the incredible thing. So after walking the labyrinth, what I did was I went back to my little room with my single bed and my desk, and I started writing down acronyms for ideas of what I wanted to share with people and the messages. And then I came home, and serendipitously, I swear, I've been watching a lot of webinars and seeing how people do them. And this guy was talking about how to build a membership website and the steps that you could take and the technology that you could use. I mean, he didn't have all the answers, but it was like, wow, and how to monetize this, like on various different levels. So people have access to the website for basic information, and then it can be scaled. So maybe the membership is $10 for people that don't have a lot of money, but they still want to be connected, and then scaled upwards for more information and more value, to the point where these webinars that people would have access to on a regular basis, they would maybe be a premium membership. And the beauty of how we are in a world of technology where we can deliver this to the planet, not just, to Canada, in the case that we're both in Canada here, but to the whole world. There are, I think it is just in the US alone, 400,000 people that live with multiple sclerosis. Now, that doesn't include things like fibromyalgia and all these other critical illnesses or challenges that people face where people live with fatigue. So the market is huge. And there's so many possibilities. So yeah,
and also the number of people that you can help is huge.
Yes.
I mean, and you're not just restricted to the United States.
No, that's just the stat that I remember. I can't remember. I think it's I can't remember how many million people around the world. And truthfully, I don't want to limit it to MS. Just because I have it in my body, MS is one of those things. And I'm sure if you were to talk to somebody else that had open heart surgery, there'd be things that would be similar and things that would be different based on each individual person's experience, right? Mm-hmm. Some people that have multiple sclerosis don't have issues with fatigue. Mm-hmm. So these are things that I'm not an expert at multiple sclerosis. What I want to share with people are the resources and tools and things that I've learned in my journey around loving myself and learning to manage my life, and all the wonderful people I've met along the way that have provided information and guidance that I can leverage to share information to this audience that I so want to connect with and give to. So the possibilities are truly endless, and
that's very motivating. It's very inspiring. I'm kind of pumped now to get on with my stuff. It's like, okay, So
exactly.
On a practical note, just before we close, how do people get hold of you? How do they get hold of you? What's your website? Is that the easiest?
Thank you for asking. Yes. So my website right now is Lift Strategies. Lift as in elevator lift, L-I-F-T, lifting up. That's right. And the word strategies, plural.com. Or they can Google me as Jen, Jen, short for Jennifer, DeTracey, D-E-T-R-A-C-E-Y, kind of like Dick Tracy, but D-E and Tracy with an E. DeTracey, and they can track me down that way. And whether it is about the marketing programs I currently have, or the speaking events, or the topics that I speak on, and my future vision, I would love to connect with people. And I just am thrilled to be part of the technology that you're using, and just having this great connection with you. Jeffrey and I reconnected recently, and it was amazing how there was so much that we have in common in terms of our path of where we're headed. And that's the power of a community. And community is so, so important. And that is one thing that I've learned as a vital lesson since being diagnosed, is how important community is. And that's why I want to build a community for people that have difficulty getting out and connecting to the degree that they would like to. So
yeah, I think that's very one of the great challenges with MS and other people that I've seen with energy problems is the physicality of the world, whereas technology can help bridge that, stretch that, get you further, and interact with people and build a community. I mean, I was amazed when I did a test program early in the year. And
Mhm.
even though it was all done online, I ended up, we all ended up in a community. That was it. It was a community. And I miss them. I'm still connected to several of them, but I miss them.
Yeah.
I'm in Victoria. Just to give you, just to speak about the stretch of technology. When I did this, I had one gentleman who lived outside of London,
Wow.
one lady that lived in San Diego, another who lived in outside of Seattle, another gentleman that was outside Seattle, a guy that was on Thetis Island, and
Wow.
sometimes he would log in from Ottawa.
Uh-huh.
It just sort of didn't. It sort of depended where he. And then I had somebody from Montreal. I
Hmm.
mean, I mean, geography in a sense is disappearing.
Yes, it is. It is. Yeah. I had somebody on my one of my recent webinars from Brazil.
Oh,
It's so cool, right?
yeah, it's very cool. Very.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you very much. And maybe with permission, I'll ask you, can you come back and talk a little bit about marketing for us sometime?
I would love to do that, Jeffrey, and it would be an honor. And thank you for inviting me to be a part of your show today. I'm just thrilled to have this meaningful conversation with you, and for those that are listening right now, and those that will listen later to your replay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Bye bye. Take care.